Kiran, you're looking fresh as a daisy today. What gives?
Fresh as a daisy or fresh as a
Petunia.
a wildflower, more like it, because I had a nice long nap in the car, and when I woke up, we had passed our turn and we were hurtling towards BKC. I have a new driver.
Okay.
And I had WhatsApped him the location. But because I was sleeping, this gentleman who had not received the WhatsApp for whatever reason did not deem it fit to wake me up.
Are you serious? So he kept driving?
He kept driving straight. When I opened my eyes, suddenly we were at the turn towards Chetna College. And where have we arrived? This doesn't look like Idea Brews. And then he said, I didn't want to wake you up because you were sleeping. So my sleep deprivation has reached a new driver as well.
That's so cute. Very considerate driver. He's better than some husbands.
So it was good that I didn't wake up when we reached Nariman Point or something.
I know, Raigad.
Straight.
Yeah. Kiran, I wanted to start a conversation today with a question for you. Suppose your son is in grade 9 or 10. And some children from his class are going to somebody's farmhouse in Pauna without an adult accompanying them. There are boys and girls both. Would you send him for a overnight trip?
No.
And the reason being?
If there are no adults accompanying them, I will not send him.
And until what age does this rule apply?
I have kept it until 18.
Yeah. So I think I have similar rules. And sometimes I realize that there are two different discussions. Of course, there's boundaries and there's permissiveness. I realize that parents today are very permissive, and it puts a pressure on the parent who's not that permissive to be permissive.
Absolutely.
So, when kids are planning such getaways, I have a very strict mandate about this, that you cannot stay over. You can go in the day with, accompanied by a house help, so that there's someone to generally watch over you while you're around. Kids can slip and fall or whatever. And I have no trust issues. So it's got nothing to do with being concerned what the child will be up to. That's not even a zero concern. It's not even in the minus. I mean, it's in the minus perhaps. But there are other kids, and there are, you can have an injury, and there are many other things that can happen. Burglars can break into the house realizing there are only kids there. Of course, boys and girls in the same house. As a mother of daughters, I can't be protective enough, right? Absolutely. But I find that a lot of parents sort of have a very chilled out approach towards this. And they say, no, I've had all discussions with my son. I've spoken to my daughter. We talk openly about everything. I'm perfectly confident sending my child.
You may be perfectly confident about sending your child, but you can't be perfectly confident about the world around your child.
That's exactly what I say.
And, I was brought up like a weed. I used to stay out at anybody's house, anytime. My mother was just so happy that I was not in her hair. As long as they called up, we didn't have a phone at home. I would just call up the neighbor and leave a message that I'm staying at X-friend's house. And it was fine. Not that I ever abused that freedom that she gave me, but I don't know why I've become such a protective and paranoid parent.
Oh, so you don't allow sleepovers at a friend's house in town?
In town, in the city, with parents I know.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But going out of town where I can't reach you within an hour of driving.
Yeah.
And with a bunch of friends who are as crazy and disorganized as you. No, I'm sorry.
Correct.
We need adults around.
No, I have the same thing. And I sometimes feel that I'm being too cautious or strict. But then it doesn't sit well with me otherwise. If I'm going to be panicking while my child is doing some sort of an overnighter somewhere. I think even with a chaperone who is not a parent, I will not allow, an overnight. So
I'll be the one driving behind them.
One of the parents. I'm saying that like someone says that, send your nanny along or whatever. Your child is 16 or 17. I think that till they're old enough to really take care of themselves, one cannot. But when did you first have a conversation with Krish about the birds and the bees?
I can't think of the first. I think we've always had conversations about bodily consent and agency from the time he was little. Because, this is getting a little serious now, but I did run an initiative called Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Month.
I remember.
And I think most of us at least, have gone through some incident or the other in our childhood. And you want to make sure that, we were not told anything. Yeah. We were just so naive about things. You just want to make sure that your kid has some information and knows, what is the good touch, bad touch, vagera, vagera, vagera. And I think I'd done it so well because I was in a meeting once, a very important presentation, and the call Krish was staying over at my mom's place. He was around 3, I think, at that time, and repeated calls from my mom on my mobile. And then I panicked. First, I ignored it. And I said, "Excuse me, I have to take this call." Took the call. My mom, very weary and exhausted, "Please tell your son to let me wash his butt."
Good touch, bad touch.
And then my son comes on the phone and said, give him the phone. "Nada's touching my bum. You said no one has to touch my bum."
How
said, okay, the message has gone through.
That's well done.
So these conversations have been happening, and they keep on happening. So as age appropriate ways. So hopefully he's been well informed. I don't know.
My mom had that conversation with us when we were very young.
That's good then.
She used to watch us like a hawk.
Okay, that's lovely.
And one day, she told me recently, she shared this with me. So we were in an army cantonment, which as you know, are very, very safe. There are sentries everywhere, wide roads, hardly any traffic, lots of trees, and there are people around, as in there are, people's homes around. So it's all rather quiet. And this one time, my mom says, I was on roller skates or walking the dog, or one of the things I was on my own. And I must have been 12 at the time, or 13. And she says that she suspected that one Batman, or orderly as they're called, somebody else's orderly, was following me on a bicycle. Poor guy wasn't. But she noticed him pass by our main gate just after I had left our house. She took her car and she went spying, and I have no idea of this. So I don't know what speed the car was doing. And then only once she was convinced that this guy is not actually stalking me, did she sort of come back home. So mom was very, very cautious about that. But there was no question of conversation. She was squeamish talking about sex. So she would talk about abuse. She would talk about somebody violating your, physical space. And there was no good touch, bad touch. Everything was bad touch.
Yeah. Any touch was bad touch, which was good in a way, I think.
Any touch was bad touch, except your father, your mother, and that's it, siblings. So I think I was always cautious, and it, did serve me. But I don't know why parents at the time were not openly talking about sex. It was such a taboo. Even today, I think that entire generation of parents would, want to believe that the kids are still, basically virgins.
And the kids had kids through immaculate conception.
Correct. Yeah.
So my mom was, I don't know whether it was squeamish or what, but she had a book which she got from somewhere. The moment I got my period, which was at age 9.
My God, you were quite an early bloomer.
Yeah, I was terribly early, horribly early. And I'm horribly late also,
I know.
as you know. So she got a book by, I forget who, it was a doctor. It says, everything you wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And she handed it to me and she said, read this.
At 9?
At 9. So I went into all the technicalities of all bodily parts and all the diagrams.
Which were progressive.
Which were named. And I was a reader,
But that's very progressive of your mom.
That is very progressive, but it is also very scary because it put me off sex for the rest of many, many years.
So you figured it all out at age 9?
Yeah.
Oh, dear God.
So while the rest of my friends were talking about how you could kiss and get pregnant, I knew, no, you have to sperm has to enter vagina and, ovary. And,
bio lessons.
Yeah, full. I was giving them bio lessons before the bio had taught us all this. And they did not know what I was talking about. But it was scary to have so much information at an age where I was not really ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was very late to be informed.
Which is also a blessing.
Yeah, perhaps. In those days, you could get away with that. But my girls, I think that one
day...
Did
you have the talk with them?
No, good touch, bad touch, we all did from a very, very young age. And then, they would all say, where do babies come from? And then that same nonsense that you pray to God and you get a baby. You tell a 4-5-year-old that. And then one day I summoned both my daughters and I said that, listen, I want to tell you, because there was a case of some child that my younger kid knew who was actually adopted, but the parents hadn't told her. And then she found out in a very rude manner. Some school kid went and tattled and teased her about it and said, your mother's not your real mother. That's your father's second wife and your real mother doesn't exist. And this kid came crying and it became a really sad thing. So My younger one began to wonder if she was adopted as well.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
And I'm talking about, she was in grade 1 at the time or 2. So she said that, Mama, are you sure I came from your stomach? Are you sure I came from your stomach? So I said, you did. So she said, show me where are the marks. So then I said, now it's time to tell her that I wasn't cut open. It would have been simpler than the conversation if I had some stitches. So I said, no, you really did. And she started having a tantrum that there are no marks on your stomach. Clearly I didn't come and I'm also adopted. So I said, okay, go call your sister. Today we'll have this conversation. Okay. So they're 5 years apart. So if Rania, how old are you when you're in grade 1?
6 or 7. Yeah.
6 or 7. So if she was 6, then the older one was, I guess, 11.
11, 12. Yeah.
So I said that, listen, I need to talk to both of you about something and sit down. So I said, look, I need to tell you that children are not given just by God like that. And I told them about the whole process of it very mechanically. And then I said that some people have to go through a C-section, but some people give birth from the birth canal. So Zara burst out laughing. She said, old news, stale news. So I looked at her, I was stunned. I said, how do you know? She said, Mama, you're forgetting. She named one kid. She said, that kid was in my class. I've known all of this since I was Rania's age. So, breaking news to you that your kids know this already. Rania didn't know. And then she was a little consoled after that.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
But it really helps me because Dara is older by 5 years. And, sometimes she assists me in these conversations.
That's nice.
And then one day, it was really cute. Actually, Rania said that, Mama, I need to tell you something. And I said, what happened? And she said, today I used the F word. So this is again around the same time. So I said, oh, what did you say? She said, I said a few bad things and I really am feeling guilty. I want to talk to you about it. So I said, what did you say? So she said, I said flip. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. I started laughing. Then she said, I said one more very bad word. It starts with D. So I said,
I'm thinking of all the bad words.
Me starting. Too. So
nothing's coming to mind.
She said, I said, damn.
Oh, Lord. Okay. She's an angel this time.
Yeah. So then I said, damn is also fine. Okay. Then she said, I said the C word. Can you just see, this is not a Reader's Digest joke. I said, my God, DC, it's all coming in that sequence. So I said, what is the C word? She said, I said, crap. Okay.
She's a very sanitized version.
I know, this is so cute. So I was like, one day when she grows up, I've written this somewhere, the whole anecdote, I've saved it. It means some file on my Dropbox. That one day when she's, old enough, I'll tell her what all these words, what she was really petrified of speaking. So I've just been very careful, like be clear. Language, you have to be.
Yeah. Which reminds me of a similar anecdote with Krish. So when he was really young, he must have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5, maybe. The song came out, Bhagti Ke Bos.
Yeah.
And I kept telling him, you can't sing this song out loud when you're in public because it has
some very catchy song.
Yeah. It has some bad words in it. So he pondered over it for a long while. Then he comes to me, Mama, I know what the bad word is. DK.
So sweet.
I said, yes, that's a bad word. You cannot sing it loud. Don't you dare sing it loud.
So cute. I miss that age.
Yeah. And now when he peppers every sentence with, punctuation, full stop, comma, apostrophe with bad words. I miss that time.
Yeah.
I really miss that
may
time.
I say that the Hindi bad words, I didn't know what they meant until I was much older because in an army, people say you're a Punjabi. How did you not know? Because Punjabis pepper their language with a lot of MCs and BCs. But my father was in the army. They never used that. They said bloody for everything.
Oh.
And damn and bloody, right?
Give them a bloody nose.
Yeah. So I never, for anything, and my father never cursed or abused. And my grandparents also very genteel and urbane. So I didn't know. I mean, by the time I figured this out, I still thought it was something really quite different. So people thought that I feigned this. I wasn't that naive. I'm feigning this naivete, but I wasn't. I genuinely was stupid and naive and ignorant.
So the thing I keep doing with Krish is because these bad words are so women-centric. It's all Ma Ben ki gali.
Yeah.
Whenever he's been saying them, I will say the father-brother version of it.
Yes.
And then he said, Mama, don't bring your feminism into this. I said, why not? Why are you...
Yeah, like when women call somebody a C, why are you using your own body part and making an abuse of that? Call somebody a dick if you have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it grows. I grew up in a house with a woman, my mother. My dad passed away very young. I had no experience of boys and what they go through in adolescence. So when Krish was hitting puberty, I knew the talk had to be had. Now, my husband, to ask him to have a talk with Krish was like, get your gonads out. So that was not happening. So what do you do? So I would explain to him very carefully, Krish, sometimes this might happen to you in the night. Don't get worried. Don't get upset. It's perfectly normal.
Oh my God.
Mama, I know. So I said, okay, I'm a little late to the party. They know everything before you can.
But because they have access to YouTube and phones. That's the thing.
And the moment something happens,
the challenge is, in our parents' time, the challenge was to expose us to the facts of life. Now the challenge is to at least hold them off until a certain age.
Yeah. And anything happens to them, they're immediately Googling up what's this, this. And coming up with worst case scenarios. Like, what, this measurement is okay. Why the fuck are you measuring now? This time. Hold on. You don't need to measure stuff now.
That's really funny.
This time.
Kiran, you should write a handbook on this. I mean, your 18th book or 19th book.
I did.
On having talking about sex with your kids?
I wrote a book on A Boy's Guide to Puberty.
Oh, you have written this?
Which he didn't read and nobody else read also, apparently.
Oh, okay. No, you should publicize it again now. Have you written a book about the Andromeda Galaxy? Because that's the only thing left. Every time I ask her, have you written a book on this? She's like,
no, Proxima Centauri, maybe.
Yeah, it's some sci-fi type.
Yeah, maybe sometime I'll do that. Okay. That's on my list.
Yeah.
Surely. But what has been the most... we are not women who get embarrassed easily.
Yeah.
Both of us.
Yeah.
But have there been...
No, I get embarrassed easily.
Okay.
I can't lie. I do.
Okay. So I'm very...
But no, depends on what... if someone praises me too much, I get embarrassed.
So what has been some moment where you had to have some discussion with your kid and you felt like you needed to hold back a bit?
No, I'll tell you what happens, that if my children are talking about anybody else and they're talking about... So when my mom, we used to go to the movies occasionally, and if there was a sex scene or a kissing scene or an intimate scene in it, my mother used to distract me. She used to... by feeding me. It's funny. When I was really small, and in the theaters of those days, you didn't get clean food. You couldn't feed your child samosa. They'd get some salmonella poisoning.
I used to eat 12 at a time.
So she used to carry what?
Yeah.
She used to carry boiled eggs.
Oh, Lord.
And I believe every time some intimate scenes to come, she used to say, here, eat some egg. And she used to be shoving an egg in my mouth.
So that was the reason for your hatta katta Jawani.
Yeah. Eating boiled eggs while watching movies. And then later on, I think it became popcorn. I remember watching The Bold and the Beautiful with her, by which time I was a proper teen, like a grown teen. I must have been 16 or 17. And then she would say, I can't watch this with you. This is very uncomfortable. Okay. So yes, when I'm watching, like I watched, what is that Woody Allen movie? Annie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I watched Annie Hall with my dad.
Okay.
And I watched it with him about 12, 13 years ago.
Okay.
And there's a lot of sex and sex talk in that thing. My dad was okay. I was really uncomfortable. Though my father was really my friend. And he was very, very progressive and broad-minded. So when I think now that's a legacy in me, that from my mom, when I watch a movie which is, I don't watch explicit films with them. I watch, supposing there's an intimate scene, I think everybody in the room gets a little uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'll tell you something else about myself. I get squeamish about watching intimate scenes even by myself.
Oh, Lord. Okay. I hear you.
This is conditioning.
I think I get bored.
No, I feel I'm a peeping Tom. I feel that intimacy is between those two. Even if it's acted out, I feel that I'm peeping into somebody's bedroom and what I'm doing is I'm trespassing.
Interesting perspective. I just get on with the plot. Like, why are we doing all this?
No, so there are two things. One is that, it's acting. But even then, I feel it's a very private moment. I shouldn't look at it. It's so weird.
And I watched Game of Thrones with my son.
Oh, there's incest and there's everything.
And everything. And then he was a teen. He was quite grown up at that point. But there was some amount of explaining to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some scenes which were pretty out there. And I was like, forward kare, nahi kare, what do you do? And it's like, it's cool, mom. And then, I just recently read a book which said that teens in India have access to porn, but from the time they're 12, and in the US, it's from the time they're 6, they're accessing porn. So that worries me. I think that if I'm not going to sit and correct all the messages,
yeah, they're thinking that that's how real life sex is.
They think like
but therapists are talking about that.
There was a phase he was going through Axe bottles by the day, and I was telling him nobody is going to fall into your lap.
Axe deodorant.
Yeah, because of Axe. Like, hello, that is not happening. That is porn. No woman is going to line up and say, like, come on, take me now, because like you sprayed yourself top to bottom with Axe. It's not going to happen. So,
that's funny.
But anyway, I think our job is just to keep correcting the messages.
I think that these days our televisions are doing a very good job of raising our children. I think that we don't need to worry about these conversations. They know enough. But was the show Sex Education? Did you watch it?
Yes, of course.
Now that poor chap. Imagine if that's what your mom is all about, and that she's a sex therapist, and then she's getting so much action herself. It's going to really basically cripple you for life.
Absolutely. But I loved that character. Gillian Anderson.
Actually, I want to watch that. I didn't watch the last season of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's wonderful. I mean, to get all your questions answered and to become a sex therapist and school yourself. Help out the other kids. Yeah. Wonderful. And it's needed, I think. It's really needed.
But you see, also with this generation, a commodification of sex has happened. Okay? It's starting early. The awareness is starting early. Exposure to porn is starting early. So I think that I'm expecting them to get bored of it really quickly and grow out of it.
I hope so too.
Platonic marriages in Japan?
Yes, we just read about it. Friendship marriages where you marry somebody and you are basically just living with a friend.
It said you're marrying your best friend and they're completely platonic. They're on the rise.
A sexual marriage, you're free to have relationships outside of the marriage.
Because they're, been there, done that from the age of 12, 13, 14, whatever that age is that when these people are indulging in sexual intimacy.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all old hat for them. What I worry about is the number of young girls I see on Instagram putting up thirst trap pictures.
Yeah.
So what I really worry about, I see very young girls who are maybe in school, college, just putting up thirst trap pictures of themselves on Instagram. And the boys seeing this and thinking this is normal and this is how it should be. Young boys their age and hitting likes and comments. Okay, you're getting the dopamine hits, you're getting the attention you're looking for. But beyond that, what? You are objectifying your own self.
And they want to.
But where does it end?
No.
Tomorrow, if somebody is going to be looking at your profile for an interview or a job application or whatever, and something the internet never forgets.
No, these are from the shadow accounts.
No, they're out there.
Maybe the older girls. The younger girls have shadow. I'm talking about 12, 13-year-olds have shadow accounts.
Yeah,
under some random names. And you know what they do? They sexualize themselves so much from the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Fixing their hair, wearing gloss, stroking their hair, running their fingers. It is really suggestive. And I wrote a column about it in the HT Brunch, which was that mothers don't even know. But this is what young girls are doing. And I think that even if you don't think your daughter is doing this, it's very important to have that conversation. So this started by the time my younger one was growing up. My older one was already older. So I actually had a conversation with her about this. I said that, showing, and she's a very sensible kid. So she said, Mama, you're telling me I know this already. I don't do it. Showing your body parts, whether it is through a bikini or plunging neckline or,
on a public platform.
Or like pouting in a very suggestive way. I said, is the lowest way to get attention. Get attention for your mind, get attention for your talent, get attention for something bright you did. And of course, it's okay to want to look good and want someone to praise you. You can't completely take that away from them. I said, but people who have nothing else to offer resort to this. Yes. And then my older one argues with me that, you trash my second mother, Kim Kardashian, so much. She called her the second mother. Or she calls me the second mother, that's the real mother. You trash her so much. Now she's gone and become a criminal rights lawyer. What do you have to say to that? And I keep reminding her that her journey started with leaking her sex tape. And revealing her body. She undresses and dresses on camera. I don't know how her kids are going to feel about this.
Yeah, in the long term. On an aside, I think you should file a case against Kim Kardashian for alienation of affection.
Yeah. Nothing that I will do against her is going to reduce her popularity. People love her.
Her popularity can stay, but at least your kid cannot call her
my second mother. Yeah. And one day I posted something about her in my stories, and actually Zara went and reported my account.
What are you saying?
Zara reported my account for making fun or ridiculing Kim Kardashian.
You really should file that case.
She did that. And I thought that she'll outgrow this, but she hasn't.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. But that's Taylor Swift is who I like. See, Taylor Swift she's my younger one's icon.
Idol. Yeah.
And Taylor Swift is somebody who, on the back of her heartbreaks,
many heartbreaks,
her talent has gone ahead and carved an empire for herself. Where is she in the ranking of the world's richest people? She is somewhere in the top something, right?
And she has had the courage, which I really like, to take back. Now we've gone away from boundaries and all that. So you always
it's fine, but that's the fun of this. We can't. This is not some Arnab Gode Barkha debate that let's stick to the topic.
What I like about her, she had the courage to take back the rights of her songs.
I know, and re-sing them and remaster them
and release them all over again. I mean, what courage!
What courage
to show your middle finger to all these huge,
I know, and so many tracks. There were so many tracks.
So, I mean, that's an icon to have.
That is an icon to have.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And she does not show her body.
So, the icons of our time were Madonna, and don't forget there was also Samantha Fox.
I know.
Who disappeared. She had insured her rack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember?
She was not known for her vocal cords.
I know, but whatever happened to her?
Nothing.
I suddenly remembered she existed. This is what happened.
Pins. They're not memorable because they have nothing to back them apart from maybe the memories.
No, but this one will be memorable, Kim Kardashian, because of the show, because of how culturally relevant she is.
20 seasons of the Kardashians?
Yeah.
That's not a joke.
Yeah.
We've seen those girls grow up from little babies to what they are now.
I didn't watch them at all. My kids used to watch. I remember we were in south of France and we were on a holiday. This was in 2019, I recall. And we asked the girls, do you want to come to Ez? And Ez is this beautiful little village there. And they said, no, we are tired. We want to chill at the hotel. And that was the most memorable part of their trip. Catching up on some episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians in Cannes.
Wow.
That's like, we had the best time ever. I said, but you didn't come to Ez. I said, yeah, but we sat and we watched. It felt very good to watch it there. Also, the thing is, whenever you go anywhere, they'll say, Zara would say, Kim was here. This is Kim's favorite place. Like, the ghost of Kim has haunted me. The specter of Kim lives in our house.
I don't feel so bad now because when we went recently to Phuket, Krish didn't come with us for a day because he wanted to catch up with some WWE tournament that was happening.
Which is all fake, right? WWE
is
fake.
It's totally fake.
So why do they watch it? It's all staged.
The same reason they watch the Kardashians.
That's right. Clever. Good answer.
And sex talk, yes, important. I recently got a forward from a friend. You know Ruchita Darsha of First Moms Club. She sent me a reel, an Insta reel with somebody who's called the Santoor mom or calls herself the Santoor mom, who's doing reels with her son who's obviously a teenager. Now, these reels were very seductive and very suggestive.
Oops. And
I watched it and I didn't realize that it's mother and son. Then I watched it again and there's this mother going around. I mean, I'm not judging. She was in shorts and a little short dress and a mini or whatever. And she was doing this dance and, he was holding her waist and all that thing. We're talking about boundaries. How do you do something like that? How do you sexualize content you're putting out with your own kid in it? And where do you draw the boundary?
Yeah, even oversharing with your kids, right? Thinking that it's totally cool for my children to, know so much about my life or my...
The worst thing I think parents can do is overshare about their own troubles with each other to the kids.
Oh, of course.
And that is the boundary that should never be crossed.
No, that is the boundary because you're just passing on your conflicts to your children.
Yeah.
And poisoning their minds.
Yeah. And I think a lot of parents do that. Maybe the kid is the only person they have to talk to or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's so unfair and it shouldn't happen because why should the kid carry the burden of your fights and your disagreements?
Yeah. No, absolutely. When we were growing up, two adults were sitting and speaking, my mom with somebody, we weren't allowed to sit around. I've mentioned this to you before as well. So say, please leave now. Even if mom and dad were having a serious conversation, they'd be like, This conversation is not for children. I think our parents did their best to preserve our innocence. I don't think we can do that because we are well past that as a generation of parents. But it's very important to have boundaries with your children. Children are being taught to have boundaries with us, by the way, in their therapy sessions.
They're teaching us how to have boundaries with them.
Yeah.
They're teaching us and keep the children innocent. We are more innocent than our kids
once
days.
I asked my older one, I can't remember, I said, Zara, can you choose between this and there's some important decision? And she said, it's not fair that you're putting the burden of this decision on me. I remember her words. I can't remember what decision it was. But she said, it had nothing to do with my husband, it was something else. And she said, you figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. That's I think so interesting that our kids are schooling us on this.
Yeah.
On
boundaries. No, they're overschooling us. They're overschooling us. Because these Western therapists are constantly telling them, have boundaries with your mothers. Have boundaries with your mothers. Yes. It's a very common. Go on Instagram, go on Reels, go on TikTok. You will hear I am telling you, these children are listening to these therapists, even if they're not in therapy. But they are hearing there's so much conversation about mental health in therapy these days that they're listening to these diktats by therapists. And now they are actually putting us out, the circle that they're building around themselves, beyond which we are not allowed to enter, is almost insulating and isolating. And that is crazy.
So this is also why
I have a big problem with this pandemic of therapists. Okay. Epidemic of therapists, sorry. I have a big problem with this epidemic of therapists.
That epidemic is not going to go anywhere. We're not going to get
unsolicited advice therapists.
Yeah. Covishield is not happening for them.
But they've withdrawn Covishield.
Yeah, they've withdrawn it. But we need a Covishield for therapists.
I know.
Yeah. With blood clots. But that's not going anywhere. But what we can do is, I don't know. I try to tell them, like, listen, there are some spaces where I'm not going to have boundaries with you.
Yeah.
I need to know things.
Yeah.
And I need to know certain things. You can't tell me that, that's my business and that's my...
Yeah, supposing somebody's kid is at school and they suspect that this child may be smoking, right? And then going through that bag and the child saying, where are your boundaries? I mean, you can't... These kind of things are happening, Kiran.
Yeah. You can't...
Like, what nonsense? 2 tight slaps and we'll teach you boundaries.
No. Yeah. The boundary ends where my hand connects with your face.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to get trolled for this, but...
Yeah, very good. Well said. Yeah.
But, till I don't know, I keep a healthy respect. And there is trust and there is no judgment. But as long as I am responsible for you emotionally, financially, physically, there are certain areas where I don't think I should have...
No, absolutely. So, that's like... Start paying your own bills, start paying your own tuition, your college fees, whatever. And then you can have all the boundaries you want.
And move out of my house.
You can have all yours, in your case, move out of my house. Mine is already living away. But I'm saying that once you start paying all your bills, you can have all the boundaries you want.
We'll draw double circles around.
And I will remember these boundaries. I keep telling her when I'm drawing my will.
But I keep thinking that they're also going to choose our old age home. So let me not be so hard and fast about it.
Yeah, that's why I think we all need a nest egg just for ourselves.
Yeah.
That is like, here are the terms and conditions. If you treat me like this, meet me this often, allow me my grandkids, blah, 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 blah. Until that much time, you will have this inheritance from me. And you will only get it after I die, basically.
That is the operative phrase, after I die.
Yeah. That is, I'm going to hold on to whatever little I have until my dying day. Kiran, I don't know about people here in Bombay, but my grandmom had a storage room, my nanny, okay? And they lived in one of those old double-storied houses, Kothis in Chandigarh. And then she had a storeroom and the keys to the storeroom were always under her pillow, a thin little, flat little pillow. She was a very frail, fragile woman. And all the rewards were in that storeroom. All the rewards were edible rewards.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that is the kind of grandmother and old mother I'm going to be when my kids are older. One little storeroom with chubbies.
I cannot think of you as frail and fragile.
I'll keep my bags in there. Yeah, my nanny used to put aam papad there. Homemade aam papad from mangoes from a orchard. And then she used to keep something called shakkar pare. Which is something soaked in jaggery and kurmurad and lots of really nice things to eat And pickles, lots of pickles. I used to like eating pickle just by itself. And that was in her locker room. I'll keep my shoes and bags.
Shoes and bags. I can't even keep
because
my shoes.
I can't cook anything. My kids aren't getting any pickles and ram papads from me.
I can't even keep my shoes and bags. I don't think Chris should be too happy carrying them around.